so pathetic. It's
Yeah.
awful.
God, I hate advertisements these days. I'm so glad I can, like, I don't watch regular TV. Everything I see is on Netflix or Hulu. So
Nobody
it's all,
does.
no. I mean, I tell people don't watch TV and everybody responds back, I'm not watching TV. I'm like, well, that's good.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if it's either, I could kind of consider a good thing. I don't know, trying to be an optimist or whatever about, you know, since nobody watches TV and everybody's getting their own information on social media or YouTube or stuff like that. Do
Hmm.
you think they're getting more of the truth, or do you think people are actually searching for the truth more now than they did before, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, because of this constant because of the internet and all this information, or do you think it's people are being tribal, like, oh, I believe this, so I go only here, and oh, I believe this, so I go only here.
Right. I think it's kind of a mix. I think there's probably 15 or 20% of the people out there that are very tribal, that they want to be in that echo chamber. They only want to surround themselves with people that are saying either exactly what they believe or exactly what they want to hear.
Right.
I think that one good thing about social media is that it's made people a lot more aware of the misinformation that's out there. So there's a lot more people that are looking for information. They're not trusting, whereas 15 or 20 years ago, they would trust just whatever the news told them. Now they're actually looking for, okay, what's the actual truth?
Right.
Um, and a lot of that has to do with people, like you and I putting out information that says, hey, this is what you were told, but this isn't actually what happened. Um, and that's a good thing. The problem with that is that there are a lot of people who are willing to believe every single thing that comes in front of them. So then you get a lot of really wild theories, and you have to be able to filter it all out. But on the whole, I think that people are doing great about looking for what's accurate information now.
Right. Well, I think people believe what they've always been told because of a couple of things. Number one, laziness,
Yeah.
which is, if you ask me, the number one problem in the world actually is being lazy.
Yes.
People are just, and the other thing is, I kind of got this feeling with the media and Trump is they were so wrong in 2016
Yeah. Yeah.
that they're just trying to save face at this point.
Hmm.
They'll
Hmm.
say anything just to prove to whoever will listen that, well, we were right, and you were wrong, and he's this guy, because I almost think it's like they're saving face, to be honest
Right.
with you. And then the people who believe that are also trying to save face, who don't want to understand the truth. It almost like hurts their ego to say, oh, you know what, I was wrong. It takes a lot to say you're wrong.
Yeah. Oh no, it definitely, it is really difficult for people to admit that they were wrong about something. Um, and that's always been true. But now, because of social media, you have an audience for everybody. So if you say something and 100 people listen to you, now all of a sudden you have to basically apologize to 100 people, and it
Right.
makes it that much more difficult to just say, "Hey, I screwed up."
Right.
Um, I know I've done it. I've passed along things at times that weren't true, because back in the past I didn't fact check things like I do now, and I've had to apologize for it.
Right.
But now I preface it with, I have a lot of people that look to me for information, and I let them know, hey, I'm going to check whatever I tell you, but do your own research. Go ahead and
Do
don't
your own
trust anything
research.
I say. Make
Right.
sure that it lines up with what you know and what you believe.
Right. And that's what I've been telling my daughter since she was, I don't know, 8 years old. Like, hey, um, there's don't automatically listen to your teachers, or listen to them, respect them. You don't even have to automatically listen to me, but what you have to do is understand both sides of every story, and then come up with your opinion, because that's your
Exactly.
opinion.
Yeah.
So, and that takes effort, and that's what I was saying before, is like everybody is lazy. They're just freaking lazy. It takes effort
Yeah.
to turn
Yeah.
off Sports Center, turn off whatever Tiger King, whatever the hell's going on now, and to how many people you think during this whole coronavirus, I don't even know if we're allowed to say that, is
Mm,
actually taking this time to improve their brain, improve their knowledge,
right.
read more books, watch more or listen to more podcasts, watch more YouTube videos on interesting subjects, or are they just sitting at home watching Netflix? I
Watching
mean,
Tiger King.
there's a time and a place for it. Don't get me wrong,
Oh
I
yeah,
like to veg out
yeah,
too, but man, what an opportunity to be like, man, I can learn something. I can not much be somebody else, but just take some effort into
right.
learning about something that they've always wanted to learn, and take the effort into doing that.
Right. Yeah. Take this time where because like for example, we don't have sports going on right now for the most part. Um, take that time that you would spend watching sports and put that time into doing something to make you the best you possibly can be.
All right.
Um, and I see some of that going on. I don't see a lot of it going on, and it kind of makes me sad because a lot of people say, well, if I didn't have all these distractions, I'd have time to do exactly what you were talking
And
about.
now they have nothing.
Right. And now all they're doing is just sitting around and getting fatter and dumber, unfortunately.
Well, yeah.
Um,
Well, here in Raleigh, it's amazing how many people have a bike all of a sudden. I mean,
yeah,
they might be 25-year-old Schwins, but everybody has a damn bike all of a sudden. So
yeah,
I I think you can go both ways. You're either like, it's kind of like divorce. So you get divorced, you either go to the gym and you get fit, or you just sit on the
mhm,
couch and be lazy. I think it's the same thing here. Like there's a lot of people, at least here, that are running. Kids are out playing more.
yeah.
People are like throwing sticks in the pond and getting dirty. I'm like, it's like a it's like a time warp to the
Yeah,
80s or something like that.
yeah. I was amazed. I rode through the neighborhood because I'm one of the lucky few that's an essential employee where I work. So I'm still go. In fact, I'm going to work 7 days a week because we're so short on people right now. But I was just saying the other day, it's amazing. I actually saw kids outside playing,
Right.
and as much as this is not a situation we want to be in, that to me is a good sign that at least, and it's probably just because the parents are so sick of just having their kids around. They're just like, just go outside and do something.
Yeah, go get
Um,
lost. Go get, if a neighbor doesn't call me because you got in trouble, you're gonna be in trouble. Like, I mean, come
exactly.
on, go do something. Go break a window or something. I don't care, but
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it's kind of good to see. I mean,
Yeah.
there might be some good to come out of that. Of course, there's gonna be a lot of bad that comes out of that. We could probably
Yeah.
delve into that a little bit, but don't you think, like, am I missing something? Does it seem something's off and something's wrong with the virus?
Oh no, definitely, definitely. I was actually talking to one of my coworkers today, and he and I were talking about how we both had. First off, we both had respiratory problems back in November, late November, early December, and we figure that it might have been this coronavirus already having been present, and we of course went through it, which is why we're not sick.
Right.
Um, but you know, this whole thing, first off, the impact is not what they projected it was going to be,
It goes down
which,
every day.
yeah. Um, and of course, we've seen other things that have like MERS and, other viruses that have come through that have had a much larger impact, the Spanish flu, things like that. And
Uh,
we haven't responded in the way that we're responding now. So yeah, there's a lot of things about it, both from the purely the sickness aspect of it that feels weird, but then also the response definitely feels weird.
if the response doesn't equal what's going on, to
No,
me, it's
no.
like, yeah, people are getting, like, the meme that goes around. Yes, I believe people are getting sick. Yes, I
Mhm.
believe the virus is a serious thing. Yes, I believe the hospitals might be overrun at some spots.
Yes.
But does this warrant what we're doing now? Something's off. And what
Yeah.
bothers me is that some of the people you think that are smart, that are on our side, are falling for this stuff.
Yeah,
So then again, it like makes me wonder, like, okay, what am I missing?
right,
Or
right.
are these people so susceptible to fear or lies? That's the scary part. It's not the liberals freaking out, going whatever. It's the people you think are so smart, and they're like, something's weird, just off.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I know a couple of my trusted sources uh, that I personally listen to are one of them is really good about, he doesn't update because he does his own show. He doesn't update every day as far as where the virus is, what the response is, things like that. But he tells people, we need to use common sense. We need to get the country back working. We need to make sure we're not making sure that the cure is worse than the disease itself. But then a couple of the other ones I've actually had to cut out because they 100% bought into a panic, and it doesn't, at least it doesn't seem from my perspective to be something that's worthy of a panic. It's not, and that's not to downplay anybody who's sick or anybody who's had loved ones perish or whatever. But people pass away from stuff all the time,
All the time.
and yeah, and we don't shut the country down every year because of the flu, and more people are dying of the flu every year. So and then you have the things that people are doing where they're literally saying, some of the politicians are saying, this is our opportunity to take power, and
Right.
they're not even trying to hide it. They're
No.
literally saying, this is our there's people in Congress that are saying, this is our opportunity to reshape America the way we want to have it, and
Right.
which should terrify people.
Well, it should terrify people, but so many people live in the now. They don't look
Mm-hmm.
at, not only do they not look at next week or next month, they don't look at the ramifications of a year from now. Now maybe you know that's me or you being, that's automatic. Okay,
Right.
I see this, but what about 2021 when it's winter again? What about 2022? Like, I just don't think people think that far in advance when it comes to
No.
stuff like that. There's so much in the moment, and
So
you're
are you
right.
worried
It's
about Are
go
you
ahead.
worried about the precedent then that we're setting? Because that's
Yes, it's the
that's what scares
precedent.
me. Is now that we've done this for this disease, and something rolls around every couple of years. The next time something happens, we're going to do this. We're going to react the same way.
Right. Well, yeah. Can it be the precedent? So that it can go two ways. The next 6 months can go two ways. People can be like,
Hmm.
look, I'm sick of this. I'm going to the ball games again. I'm going to the bar again. I'm going to concerts again. I'm doing my regular stuff. I'm going to the swimming pool. Screw you
Hmm.
guys. Or
Hmm.
it could be a totally different world where people just don't even get around each other anymore. Um,
Yeah.
which if that becomes the norm, that becomes an issue,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Not just the way you associate with people, but it goes into the economics of it as well. It's um, what are restaurants going to do? What are bars going to do? What are concerts? That's, you think about sporting event. Oh, the poor millionaires, they don't get their money. Man, there's vendors. There's people who
Yeah.
clean up the place. There's janitors. There's way more people involved. The clubhouse managers that makes $30,000 a year.
Hmm.
They're all affected. It ain't just the millionaires. They're fine. It's
Well,
the other
think
people that are
about
affected.
like we've got state fair season coming up. Now I know down in North Carolina that's in the fall, but up here it starts next month.
Right.
And you have all these vendors that come in from all over the country to state fairs, and that's their entire business model
Right.
is based on, I'm going to go to the fair and I'm going to make, I don't know, 15, $20,000 in the 2 weeks that I'm there, and then I'm going to go to the next one and go to the next one. And I, I'm not saying they're not going to have it, at least around here, but it's sure looking like it's trending in that direction. So then you're affecting, some vendor from out in North Dakota that his whole state's fine,
Right.
but because his business was based on business in Ohio, he's screwed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and again, back to the other point, like is the precedent part. If this happens again, what will what will the reaction be? Will it be, yeah, we're not shutting down the country again? Will enough Americans stand up and say we're not doing that again to make a point, or they go, okay, oh yeah, we have to do it again because it saved so many. It was supposed to be 2 million lives, and it was only 60,000 lives, so we have to do this again. Shut it down, and that's, I mean, that's looking for countries to attack us.
Yeah,
Uh, us to be a society that's just a purely socialist that doesn't mean anything anymore. I mean, I was listening to somebody talk about Italy. Italy's they're nothing now, but 1,000 years ago it was Rome. Rome was
yeah,
it. It was
yeah.
powerful. The world was Rome. Now it's like Italy, whatever. That could come to any country. That could come
Well,
here.
exactly, exactly. And there, you look at the areas in the United States that are most heavily affected. You've got New York, New Jersey, and Michigan. Those three states are leading right now in infections, and those are first off, those are some of the areas that are the highest. They're part of the huge financial engine of this country. But then also, those are areas where you have more influx of people from other countries coming in. So what do we do? Do we have to just shut down any kind of folks coming in from the country? And as much as I don't like illegal immigration and things like that, I don't want to become isolationist. I don't want to say, well, you're not allowed to come in here because we don't want to get sick.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's it's a mess. It's a
Yeah,
mess.
yeah, it's a mess, and in some ways you're like, well, is this like a test run? Is this on purpose? Is this
Yeah.
is this just I'm trying to talk about in a way where it doesn't look like I have a tinfoil hat on, but
hmm
it's just the way I have questions.
well, speaking
When
of that,
somebody says 6 feet apart, who came
yeah,
up with that? Like, if so, people go, okay, 6 feet apart, that's what we should do. In my mind, I'm like, why? Why
yeah,
not five? Why not
yeah,
seven? Who came up with six? Is the virus
yeah.
just sitting there like, oh man, that dude's 6.5 feet apart, another half foot, and I got him. Like,
I I
so
had him
much
at
right
5'11".
now.
I had him at 5'11", and he
Yeah.
stepped 1 inch back, and now I can't get him.
And I think what bothers me more than anything is that people, even if it's the media or people on social media, I don't think anybody knows the 100% truth about what's going on.
So,
But the way people are talking about it and presenting it, they're stating it as fact when it's not. That's what's
right.
scary. There's no questioning. Stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask, and if you don't do that, you get dragged out of a bus.
Yeah. Or you
There's
get
some guy in
arrested for playing in
Philadelphia
the park with your
at the park.
daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, use some common sense here, people.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me more than anything. And it's so. I have a customer who will be 100 next month.
hmm
Maybe I talked to her briefly. She's still got her wits to her, which is
hmm
really really cute. But she we were talking. I mean, she's born 1920. All right, she's
Right.
seen World War II. She's seen the Great Depression, all this stuff.
This
She said,
this is like the 42nd end of the world that she's seen.
yeah, but she still says this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
hmm
Even she's like, she's lived through it all. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. She's 100.
So
So
what people did in the past, like with polio, because polio was something that was all over the world. It was obviously a very serious disease. It was very communicable. So what? But they didn't shut down the country for that. What they did in New York was they basically put up some signs saying, unless you have to, keep your kids indoors, and that was the extent of it.
right,
And of course, it took the vaccine to polio to really eradicate it, but that was how they controlled it. They used common sense. They didn't say, okay, we're going to shut everything down, to save X number of lives. And you hate to put it in terms of raw numbers, but at some point you have to say, okay, at what point does saving 15,000 lives does that outweigh destroying the economy?
Right.
Because you're not just destroying the economy, but an impoverished country has a lower lifespan, has a higher mortality rate
Right.
than an affluent country. So if we hurt our economy long term, we're actually killing more people than we're saving.
We're killing more people. Not that doesn't include um, the mental health issues or the suicide or I somebody killed somebody killed the 2-year-old daughter and himself because of economic issues because of
Really?
yeah. I mean that's going to happen more and more because we're programmed to go into debt. We're programmed to have stupid college loans. And then all of a sudden everything shuts down, and you can't pay nothing
Yeah.
because don't have an essential job. Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of health issues as far as mental goes that people might not see. So
Right.
because of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have to. What's the point? You're right. Where's the line, or is there a line?
Well,
To
you
either
have to
shut
be
it
able to draw a
down
line.
or to keep going. I mean,
Right. Because
people are like, well, Hitler's taking over the world, but we don't want to kill any of our soldiers. And God, this sounds so morbid, but the price of freedom sometimes has blood to it.
yeah.
And you either and I kind of think that's what we're talking about here is was Ben Franklin's famous line that those who want security over freedom deserve neither.
Yeah.
And we so want to protect certain this whatever it is these lives. Nobody's going to know the number anyways. Like
No.
if we
No.
didn't do
At the
anything,
end of the day.
but they're going to say it though. They're going to say, well, if we didn't do anything, it'd be 2 million lives. So they're going to stick this number, and people are going to believe it
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they're told. But we don't know that. We don't know that. So, but we sacrifice our freedom and our economic, security over it. Yeah. But
Well,
was that right?
and they've already started doing that. First off, the guy in England that was the person who started the initial panic, he projected, I want to say, 500,000 deaths in the UK, which would have been a huge number. And yes, they've had a lot of deaths there, but they've had 10% of that. And he's actually come out and said, "Yeah, I screwed up my numbers. I apologize. But you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube."
No, nobody holds them accountable. Nobody
Right,
holds these people accountable when
right.
they make these stupid things and they come back the next week and say, well, our models show this now. Well, what about last week? You
Yeah,
know, what
exactly.
you should be held accountable for this.
Right.
Like,
And
is your numbers off, or you're not a very good numbers person if they're that off that bad with
well,
your projections and stuff. Your
well,
models, like the climate change models. Our models
mhm,
show we're going to die in 20 years.
right.
All right.
Yeah. You remember in the 70s, it was talking about the coming ice age
The
and
ice age.
how, and I remember growing up that they said that we weren't going to have enough oil to last us until the year 1989 or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
And now we've got more oil than to the point where they're talking about it getting down to $0 a barrel. We got more oil than we know how to do with.
We can't
Uh,
even store it. We can't even store it. But
right.
it's
But it's the same thing. It's modeling, and people don't know and they're terrified to say I don't know, or they're terrified to say this is a
right.
guess.
Let's get these experts in there that we're going to call experts, and they're going to tell us something, and we're going to believe it, even though they're wrong. Maybe this week they're right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, sometimes I wish. I don't know if you ever think this. Sometimes I wish, and my brain didn't work the way it works, that I could
yeah,
just go through life, do, not even care, and it should be a lot more peaceful to just.
yeah.
But it's not that way.
Well, and you and I have had these conversations for a long, long, long time. For what going on 30 years almost,
Yeah.
and we're both saying, how nice would it be to be ignorant of stuff?
Right.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
don't
you
know,
would,
you don't know. Right. Right. Right.
yeah. I mean, just go home and drink a beer and watch TV and pass out on the couch and just get up the next day and just live your life oblivious.
Right.
Um, I don't know that I would want that life forever, but it would sure be nice to escape into that every once in a while.
It sure would be, and just and it's good to have that balance, but um,
Yeah, I mean, you need to be able to escape from stuff every once in a while, you
right.
know. But I don't. You're right. It would almost be better just to not know what you don't know.
Have no concept of history,
Yeah.
or history repeating itself, or being able to think for 2 or 3 steps down the road. For every action there's a reaction, for every cause there's an effect. Uh, to just randomly just accept and believe whatever you was handed to you when you were born is just going to be that's the way it's going to be the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that would be great, but it's not always the case. Now, do I want what I think in my mind to happen? No, I don't. But
No. 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 No.
I mean, I'm sure you've thought of several different scenarios that could happen
Hmm.
that are good at
Yeah.
all. And
Yeah.
so have I. Like I'm already I'm already looking to buy a piece of land
Hmm.
and just be self-sufficient. A couple chickens, build my old cabin, sit there on the rocking chair with a gun and just like, all right, let's go.
I
But
mean, that it's as scary as a thought of a thought as this is. Those are the people. If this goes really south, those are the people that are going to survive, or the
we're gonna
people that
survive. Right, right.
right that own property or know how to get property, and then know how to take that property and become self-sufficient.
Yeah, that understand that meat and vegetables and stuff like that doesn't come from the grocery store. It comes from people actually learning how to farm and learning. I mean, I'm not the most expert, but we can probably figure it out.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you're not following the Bloomberg model where you say farming is
Yeah, Bloomberg. Yeah,
super easy, but because it's not. I mean, I obviously grew up, on my grandpa's farm, and I'm
yeah,
the
get tobacco
caretaker.
and stuff. Right.
Yeah, and I'm the caretaker of a farm right now, but it's a work. It's work. It's a skill, just like any other one, and you if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to take care of yourself, at some point, maybe not this generation, maybe not even the next generation, but at some point, you're going to be screwed. It's because we keep creeping towards a totalitarian state with all of this stuff,
Right.
and
We
at some
become very
point,
dependent on others.
yeah, and at some point you hit a tipping point where the majority of people don't know how to provide for themselves. That
Right.
all they know is go to a grocery store and get whatever is provided to them. They don't know how to produce for themselves. They don't know how to go out and hunt or fish or grow, potatoes and squash and green beans and stuff like that.
They probably
All
don't
these
even know how to get water
no,
other than turn it on the faucet. Oh, you flip the switch and water comes out.
yeah,
That's where you get water.
right. And they might know
It's,
that, hey, I can go down to a stream and I can put water in a bucket or in a bottle or something. But what do you do with that water? How do you make it safe to drink? How do you make
right.
sure
How do you
it's
sterilize it? Do they
right?
even know to boil it for God's sakes?
Yeah,
I mean, it's gonna be. I don't know. I hope to God that everything's fine and comes back. But you hear both sides of the story. But again, this is coming. I mean,
yeah.
it's not always the United States isn't always going to be number one.
No, no. And
Uh,
we've seen that. You talked about how Rome was the pinnacle, back in the first
Egypt,
millennia.
right?
After, after that, you had England for several hundred years was the pinnacle of everything. And now, right now, it's us and China is starting to take more and more. But 100 years from now, 200 years from now, who knows who's going to be there? It might be Brazil for all we know, or
Yeah, it could
it
be
might be
Brazil, could be
Uruguay.
Nigeria, it could be. I mean, it can be a lot. That's a stretch, but
Yeah,
um,
that would be a
but I
stretch.
mean, they got the people, and
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing is every country has has smart people in it that have the ability to flip that country around. It's just a matter of the right circumstances. So you can't. That's why you can't predict it.
right, you can't predict it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's always number one. Now you could just do that in sports. Like at the turn of the century, it was boxing and horse racing,
Yep.
and then at some point that went aside, and baseball became. I mean, football wasn't even a thought in the turn of the century. Now
No.
football's number one. Guess
Yeah.
what? Football's not going to be number one forever.
No. No. In fact, it's starting to trend downward. And then what happens? Soccer comes up or whatever.
Right.
Maybe cornhole. Maybe people
Yeah,
use
cornhole,
cornhole for that.
probably like something like MMA or something like that.
Yeah.
But everything changes, and
But the
you
biggest
just
point is that somebody always has to be the smartest person in the room, or they have to appear to be the smartest person in the room. And when they screw up, when they're wrong, even though nobody can really predict anything, they got too much ego to say, "Yep, I screwed up. I was my bad." You know,
right. No.
think think for yourself, folks.
All right. Yeah,
What's
think for yourself.
what's what's your favorite coronavirus conspiracy theory? Have you been paying attention to any of those as far as either what it came from or what the purpose is or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you've heard them all, but I guess again, like I said, are we ever going to know? China does not put out any information.
No.
Guess what? North Korea has had deaths. If you ask the government, it's zero.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So are we going to know everything? As much as intelligence as we have, probably not. But
No.
um, anything from it's been done on purpose
Hmm.
to make us weaker. Um, Bat soup.
Yeah, I heard about that. That I just actually heard about. They completely refuted that because the bats that they were talking about aren't even in the area and they aren't sold at the markets in the area. This
Right.
500 miles away. So
I- It, regardless of how it got here or how it
mhm,
happened, the scary thing is that how easy it was to shut down America.
yes,
And that
and
that shouldn't just scare us. That should scare the rest of the world. That should
yeah,
scare everybody.
yeah,
And oh, no, nothing might not happen now. Oh, you're just being a conspiracy theory. But yeah, okay, fine. Nothing can happen now. But now there's a blueprint
yep,
for to create panic, to shut it down, and I mean, if you were going to attack the United States of America, what better way are you going to do it than to create some fear and some virus?
right.
So
Well, so
bioterror. I mean, it's been in the movies, whatever, but
yeah,
they just figured it out.
well,
We've never done this before. We've never
no,
shut down like this ever.
we've given them the blueprint now. Now,
Right.
and every country that's an enemy of ours is already in the bio warfare game. They already have people working on stuff. Now they figured out, oh, well, that will work.
Yes.
Now what are they going to try?
Because not only is the government falling for it, but the people are falling for it as well. And we have the longest standing army in the world, which is the American citizen.
Hmm.
But it seems like they can find a way to disarm us pretty quick by creating fear. And like I said, this is the blueprint to do it. Will it happen now? No, but 10 years from now, you get
I
some
mean,
crazy dictator. And that's the other thing. Was it Hungary? I think Hungary president. They voted him in as pure ambassador. Like he's the
yeah,
number one decision. No one's like, so he's a dictator. Temporary, which like
hmm,
like like people that have dictatorships like all of a sudden give it up. You're gonna see a lot of that in different countries to protect For the sake of the people, type thing. So you're like you saw in World War One, World War Two. There's going to be a lot of dictators to want to that are pretty power hungry, that might be able to take advantage of this and say, well, yeah, look at the fear that they had 10 years ago. We can do something like this. It'll give us an opportunity to. I mean, war is different now than it was back then, but you see what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
possible.
Well, it's the whole reason that we as a country have never, before Obama, never negotiated with terrorists, because the first time you do it, the terrorist sees that you're willing to do that,
Right.
and they're just going to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. They've seen now what our reaction is, the precedent we've set with to a disease possibly going through the country. So now they say, okay, that's a weak point. We can exploit that, and it's not a good thing. That's why, and I'm not unhappy with the way the president has handled from the federal end what he's done in response. Um, and he hasn't done everything right, but he's done way more things right than he has done wrong. Uh, but at some point, he just needs to let the American people loose and just say, "You guys go, let's get this country going again,"
No,
because we were kicking all the ass 6 weeks ago.
no. I think he has to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
think he knows he has to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think he knows the backlash that will happen. Okay, let me ask you this question. If this was an election year, if this was not an election, if this was 2021,
Mm-hmm.
would Trump have shut down the economy that easily? No, knowing that he needs to get reelected, I think he kind of backed off a little bit and
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
"Well, okay, we got to do this, we got to do that." I think it was 2021 that he'd be looking at him like, "No, I'm not. No, we're not doing that."
yeah. I think he would have. I think he would have still had the same reaction, but I don't think the timeline would have been the same. I think that he's got a lot of people in his ear that are telling him, you have to do this now because otherwise you're screwed. And I don't think he cares so much about being reelected. It's not an ego thing to him, but he wants what's best for the country. And he knows for sure that his opposition isn't going to be the best for the country. So he's got to make sure he gets reelected to keep America going the way it's supposed to be going.
Right. So in that aspect, Hillary wins in 2016. What would the last 2 months look like in your opinion? That would be different. Different.
Um, well, first off, I think we'd have a lot more deaths because she would not have shut down the borders the way Trump did pretty much immediately.
No.
And he got some backlash from that, but it
No, he
turned
did.
out it was the right thing to do.
Yep. Yep.
The countries that we see that have had the biggest outbreaks, countries like England and like France and Italy, they maintained open borders until the very last second, and that was part of the problem. They had in I can't remember if it was France or Italy, they had 100,000 Chinese workers coming back and forth for the last month up until like a week or two ago, from the Wuhan province, from the epicenter of this thing,
To Italy.
into either Italy or France. I can't remember which one, but one of those two. And of course, the thing's going out of control there. Um, so first off, we would have seen a lot more death, but the reaction would have been a lot more totalitarian. You would have seen a lot more, as much as people complain that we're in a pseudo police state right now, and in some areas of the country we are, which is not a president thing, that's a governor thing. You would have seen from the federal level a lot more of a police state than what we're seeing now. They would
Well,
have used this. They would have used this as an opportunity to completely strip the Constitution as best
yeah,
they could.
I do see that point, but I think the media would have to go along with it in order for that to happen. And if we look at '09 or 10 when they had the N1H1 or
Mm-hmm.
H1N or whatever it is,
Yeah.
the media completely ignored it, and we had more deaths Obama didn't we didn't shut down the country, did nothing. So I'm kind of like thinking, if this happened, if Hillary was president, we probably would not have had the country shut down. It
Yeah.
would have probably been the same result. The media wouldn't have overreacted, because the media overreacts just to get to Trump.
Well, that's
We
true.
don't know
Yeah.
that. They'll do anything to get to him. Um, and I do think this is a ploy. Maybe it wasn't strategic. Maybe it was. Maybe this is a ploy to up ramp everything, to get Trump in trouble, to get him away from, to make him vulnerable in the 2020 election, which at this point I don't even see how he can lose unless he dies. But
No. No.
um, but again, just to say that if Hillary or any Democrat was president, it might not have been as hysteria like it is now. Can you see that point?
Yeah. No. No. I think it's very possible that you'd be right on that. Um.
Because
And
there is an example of Obama, or yeah, Obama,
mhm. Yeah.
with the other crisis we had, that who didn't do anything, and just, hey, whoever dies dies, which in a way is probably the way it should be, to be
It
honest with
it it really should be. And I mean that's a very cold-hearted way to look at it.
you.
But
Yes, it's cold hearted.
I mean that's life.
We all
Nobody.
die. We all
Yeah.
die.
Nobody lives forever. And unfortunately, I mean, when the initial outbreaks of these were coming out, they were saying that 90+% of the people that passed away from this disease, or that it was listed as disease, because they're not even passing away from the disease specifically, but they were already actively dying of other things. So these aren't people who would have been here 12 months from now anyway.
Right.
And and speaking of that, the numbers are kind of screwed up because now, the CDC is telling hospitals, telling medical workers to list the coronavirus as the cause of death.
Right. No matter
Um,
what.
right, and they
No,
and
as long as they have it in them. Yeah.
right, and
Right.
that's not to say I don't want to misspeak here. That's not to say that that's the wrong thing to do. That's not to say that they haven't done that in the past, but it ramps up the numbers more and causes more of a panic. Um, because people look at, oh, well, 1,500 people died this month of the coronavirus, but, you know, 1,450 of those people had pneumonia or bronchitis or whatever going into that.
Right.
So
Or a heart
just because
attack.
they're,
He could have simply had a heart attack. Well, they had COVID-19, so he died of COVID-19.
yeah. So the numbers, and that's what you were talking about earlier, the numbers are all screwed up. You can't, even after this is all over with, we'll never be able to really sift through and figure out who died of what and what the actual numbers were and who could have been saved and who couldn't have been saved and
It's
things
all
like that.
speculation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And the thing is I think I read somewhere where the pneumonia deaths are down this year
yeah,
because of
and
that.
yeah,
Like
and
like
the
consider like 50%. Like, okay, how is that possible?
yeah,
Because the people who have died of pneumonia, or they're putting them down as COVID-19 because they might have had a
exactly.
trace of it, or I mean, who says they didn't lie about the whole thing anyways? I don't know.
Well,
I,
I know I've got a friend of mine who he's got a pretty large social media following, and he put out a thing where he just asked. He said, "Hey, can you guys, not anecdotal, not I heard of this. Can you tell me from a direct basis, if you're a nurse or a doctor, that you work in a hospital that's being overwhelmed with these cases?" And he didn't get a single response. He got some people giving him stories, but that wasn't what he was asking for. He was asking for direct evidence,
right,
and nobody responded. And that's not, trust me, I work in an environment where we are overwhelmed, but we're overwhelmed because what the protocols we have in place at work are, if you have any symptoms, you can't come to work. So if somebody has a 1 degree fever where they normally would be working, they have to be out for a week or 2 weeks
right,
just because of protocol. So that means the people who aren't sick are being overworked. And yeah, that means you're overwhelmed, but that's a choice. That's not, hey, we're overwhelmed because we've had all these hundreds of thousands of people coming at us.
right. And I've been to Duke twice in the last month,
Hmm.
and it was a ghost town. It was an
Yeah.
absolute ghost town.
Yeah.
and there's beds were empty, and this is me. I visually see this, and I'm like, God, this doesn't make any sense. Like, where are the dead bodies on the street? I hate to sound bad, but where are they?
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of anything else we say, it doesn't warrant shutting down an economy.
No.
Um,
No.
that's weird. It's
I
just weird.
I think at the end of the day, that's the truth of it, is that the shutting down of the American economy to the extent that we have was an overreaction, and we're going to
Yes.
look at it historically as it was an overreaction.
Historically, I think we are. 5, 10 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, what? And I think we are an overreaction society, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I mean, one person gets hit in the head with a baseball, and next thing you know, all the people, every baseball stadium has to have the nets all the way around.
Yeah.
That's an overreaction to something that millions of baseball games been played in a century. That's going to happen probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so
life is inherently dangerous. You take a risk stepping out your front door every day. Period.
yes, yep, yeah. You take a risk, no matter you take a risk touching anything or um, breathing anything, taking a drink from anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a risk. I mean, there has to be a reason to do something this drastic, and I just don't see this being it.
No. No. So, what is your thought about recovery from it? When we finally do turn this American engine back on, do you think it'll be an automatic recovery, or do you think it'll be a 6 month, or how do you see this affecting the economy just in this calendar year?
Right. Well, as I said before, like it'd be great if people took this time to start studying stuff. Um, I've actually in the last probably month have done a lot of podcasts, a lot of YouTube guys, listening to experts, like real experts about the economy, about money, about currency, about central banks, and how something like this is going to affect not only tomorrow but the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear people from different sides of the spectrum saying different things. The optimists saying, "Well, we're going to get running again," and Trump being one of them.
Yeah.
And I hope it's true. But
Yeah.
here's the thing that trips me. There's so much freaking debt.
Yeah.
You can't just print money out of thin air without there being a consequence down the road, and I'm talking about 6 months to a year down the road. Um, quantitative easing.
Which they haven't. They did that the last year of Bush, and they've
Yes,
done it every year since then. It was
yes.
supposed to be a one-time thing, and they've done that every
Well,
single year since then.
every time the government says temporary, it's not temporary. I
No.
mean, getting off Nixon getting off the gold standard in '73 or whatever it was supposed to be temporary.
Yep.
We're still not. We're still off the gold standard. Um, I think we're going to see a immediate, quick recovery
Mm-hmm.
where the dollar is strong. But then I think after that it's going to fall. It's going to get in trouble
Yeah.
where we can see a real recession, a real depression. I think there's too much that have happened. There's too many people out of work. We're too much in debt. When Bush took office in 2000, we were 9 trillion in debt.
Yes.
We're 24, about to go higher, about
Yeah.
probably 30.
And we're just with this, they're looking at 6
Yes.
trillion with
Yeah.
a T
Yeah.
dollars that they're just throwing into the economy.
Right.
You know? And,
That has to devalue the dollar at some point where the dollar means nothing.
mhm.
Because there's so much printing. It doesn't. at some point it's gotta break. The debt's gotta come calling eventually.
Yeah.
And
And that's not even taking our unfunded liabilities into account, which adds another 100+ trillion dollars.
right.
You
And
know,
then imagine if someone like Bernie or some one of these people who want to get student loan debt and the Green New Deal and more and more trillions of dollars. I mean, it's at
uh,
some point I think you have to, it's okay in a free market society to have ebbs and flows, to have ups and downs. It takes care of itself.
yep,
When it gets in trouble is when the government comes in, and I get tired of hearing this. Well, FDR got us out of the Great Depression. Bullshit. He did not. He prolonged it as
yeah,
much as he could. It was a long freaking time because he got involved. I'm not saying he did he did some okay things and stuff, but it was still government programs that didn't produce.
yeah. And
Okay.
I
Um,
actually heard I heard a conservative commentator the other day on the radio talk about how this would be a great opportunity for us to look at FDR and revisit the work acts that he did. And I'm like, no, no,
it
have we
doesn't
not learned
produce.
something for the last 70 years? For Pete's sake, no,
No.
no. We don't need
That's
the additional infrastructure.
right. It doesn't. It's not productive. The best thing to do is to let it go. What this whole you're too big to fail bullshit. If you're an individual or a big corporation and you didn't say, like, I don't like Apple, but let's give them some credit. They put money. They put, I think, 25 billion aside in case the shit hits the fan.
Yeah,
Okay. That's what
yeah,
every corporation should do. That's what
yeah.
every person should do. Everybody, a person should have 3 months set aside. They should have
I
some
mean,
food set aside and say, it, and it should be, you should be allowed to fail, go down, let somebody with a brains take over. Yes, there's going to be some temporary hurt, but it's going to come back that much more stronger if you just let it go.
yeah. I
Now
mean,
that's hard to do.
you own your own business. I know you well enough to know that you have watched out for yourself so that if something happens, you're taken care of. But if your business started to collapse, nobody's going to come in and bail you out.
No,
Guess what? That work that you're doing, somebody else would step in and do that work.
right? They'll find
And
somebody else.
yeah, they'd have somebody next week doing exactly what you're doing, and it wouldn't miss a beat.
No.
Yeah,
And what it might not be next week. It might, if GM fails, it might be bad for a couple of years, but somebody's going to come in, buy it at a cheap price, and say, I'm going to do things right this time, and build a better product, build something that's not as expensive, have a rainy day fund if when crap hits the fan, all this stuff. If you don't ever fail, how are you going to learn? Okay.
exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
we're humans. We're designed to learn from failure. Don't stick your finger under, boiling water, or don't stick this knife into a socket. You learn that way.
Yeah,
And if the government is going to keep bailing you out, you have no reason to do anything right. Oh, we'll just put a bunch of money into this, and if it fails, well, we'll just get the government to bail us out. That's
it's the
such
equivalent
it's
of
such a failure, such a
it's
failure mindset to go through.
it's the equivalent of if you've got kids and your kid comes to you every month or every 2 months because they can't pay their rent, and you just say, "Well, I'll pay it for you this month." They never learn to pay the rent.
No,
They never. Yeah, it hurts. It sucks to be evicted. It sucks to have to look for another house. It sucks to have to maybe move back in with mom and dad for a couple of months while you're looking for something. But that's how you learn.
right,
You learn through pain. And
right.
I mean, and it's not fun, but hey, you only learn that lesson one time. Hopefully, you only have to learn it one time.
Yeah, and you
Some,
become a
some of us are
better
dumb enough we
person.
have to learn it more than once, but
Right. Oh, of course. I mean, yeah, we're stubborn. We've gone through crap. We've been broke and all this stuff. But um, if everything if everything was good and dandy, it would be no reason to learn for anything. Everything would be
yeah,
just fine. But You grow through stuff like this, and as long as the government bails you out, eventually they can't bail you out.
Right.
Eventually, it's not going to be able to happen.
Right.
And this is where it's going to, hyperinflation comes in. I don't know if you follow cryptocurrencies or not. This might be a good time to.
A little bit.
Yeah. The Bitcoin world is really getting excited about what's going on because once the central banks fail, and because they're decentralized, I mean, that's another subject to another day, but.
Have you seen what's happened to gold? Gold is skyrocketing, man.
Yeah, and you can't find it's very hard to actually find the physical gold.
Right.
I mean, so paper gold, yeah, but to actually call your coin and say, especially silver. Silver is very hard to find. Like I want 10 ounces of silver. It's okay. We'll see in 2 months.
Yeah, there are some companies I know. Not that they pay me to say this, but they could if they wanted to. Goldline has a large reserve of gold, so that when you purchase gold, they send you the physical gold right there.
Right.
But most of them are doing exactly what you're talking about, where they send you a gold certificate. That's
no,
not
it's paper,
fake.
paper gold. It's the same thing as fiat. Same thing as the dollar bill. It's backed on nothing.
Yep.
It's backed on nothing, and at some point, it's just you're gonna wake up one day, and the thing is they could take your money anyways. The bank, when you give money to the bank, it's not your money. You're investing into that bank.
Yes.
They might. And how awkward is this? Did you hear the FDIC put a promotional commercial out or video out to say, "Oh, don't take your money out of the bank. It's safe here." Wait a minute. The FDIC put out an advertisement to tell us our money is safe in the bank. That should tell you something. 90% of the people will be like, okay. The 10% would be like, why were you telling me this? Yank it out of the bank. There's a reason you're telling me this.
Exactly.
I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I wrong? I could be wrong.
No, you're exactly right. I didn't even.
The last time you said that, see the FDIC chairman put a warning or a advertisement out telling you your money's safe. Usually that means it's not.
I didn't know they had an advertising department.
I didn't think they did either, but they were like, I think they were just afraid, like, okay, people are going to take their money out of their bank. It's going to cause, it's going to cause a big panic, but.
And you know what? They did have a little bit of a run on the bank when this mess first started. People calmed down pretty quickly because the American people in general have common sense. They might not in large groups, but individually, they kind of have common sense. But yeah, yeah. Oh, your money's just fine. No, that's not going to cause a panic at all. Wow.
No, and that was you can find it somewhere. I'm sure if you go on YouTube, you could see it. So just an advertisement like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And then I found out something. Like I said, I've been learning a lot about this crap. Like, you know what a bail-in is? Bail-in is? There's a bailout.
No.
Well, a bail-in in sense is where the bank says your money's fine, but and it's already happened in countries like China, Egypt, where your money's there, but you can only take out $150 a day.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. I'd never heard it called a bail-in, but yeah, I've heard that.
A bail-in, and where China's been doing this supposedly for a while. Like you can only take out a certain amount, which is, bondage anyways. So in a way, to go back to your regular question, it'd be great for the economy to come back because listen, here's the thing. I haven't been affected yet. My business is still going. I mean, the way if people watch me on social media, they think I'm panicking because my business is shut down. I don't have any money. It's not about me. It's not always about me. Okay. I'm doing fine, but I care more about not only just me, but the country and 10, 15, 50 years down the road.
Yeah.
That matters.
Yeah,
Like, what
exactly.
difference does it make if I'm okay now if my daughter is not going to be okay 20 years from now?
Right, and that's the larger point that some people are trying to make that I kind of agree with in what they're saying we need to get the economy back going, not because we want to be more comfortable right now, not because we got to get out of the house, but because if we don't, there's not going to be a country left to save for our kids.
Right.
And you've got to at some point you've got to say that sacrifice is worth it. And I'm not saying, have people go to work and know they're going to die because it's just important to get dollars rolling in. I'm saying the American economy, what we've built with this country, is more important than than this illness going through.
Yes. Yep.
It's
Because illness is temporary.
yeah,
I mean, we if run right, you can make the country last a long, long time.
yep,
You know what? There's always going to be the next coronavirus. It'll be different. It
yeah,
could be whatever. It can be a war. It can be a plague. It can be something. It'll be different. But never, ever, ever have I seen or heard of the country shutting down because of something. This is a first. I
no,
can't find anything in the history books that says,
no,
okay, we give up. We're done. Yep.
and that's
Shut
and
us
that's the
down.
thing.
Just let us know when to start again. That's
Yeah, I was looking actually in preparation for this show. I was looking to try to find any kind of instance, and I'm not the greatest researcher in the world, but I'm not bad. I couldn't. I'm like you. I couldn't find anything. I could find nothing comparable to it, and
no.
that tells me that we are probably making the wrong decision, just from a historical standpoint. And and our show's going to be history for the most part. We're going to look at current events, things like that. But history, the reason people need to study history, the reason people actually need to learn and understand their history, is because over the long haul, it's not wrong. It's cyclical. It repeats
Right.
itself. If you understand history,
Yep.
you can read what's happening right now and know whether something's right or something's wrong.
Yeah. You can do that with anything. You do that with the economy.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to two of the best guys about the economy. They're like, we don't study anything but the ebbs and flows, the cycles. The cycles is what they said. It's a
Mm-hmm.
cycle. What This is what we study. We study cycles, and it's most likely always right. And history might not always repeat itself, but it rhymes a lot of the
Yeah.
time. It,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yep. No, I
So
love that saying. One
no,
of my
no, yeah, well, yeah, that's a free one. But no,
uh,
no, I agree. I agree 100%. Like, I've always liked history. I don't know if you've always liked history. I
oh
know you do now, but
yeah.
especially American history. And to me, it's just fascinating because if you don't know why, you have to know why you are where you are right now, and it's all based on history. It's all
Right.
based on 200 to 300 years ago. Why we're here right now, you can literally go back to the Stamp Act and trace a line to where we are right now.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
fascinating,
Exactly.
and so it all connects.
Well, and like here's the thing, okay, because when you and I are talking about history, we're not talking about when most people they study history, they think, oh, memorize,
Yes,
dates and
exactly,
things like. No,
100%.
understand the beginning of this country. Why was Plymouth really where the country started and not Jamestown? And why now are people trying to say Jamestown is where it started and not Plymouth? It's
Right.
because it's all tied into race relations. It's
Yep.
all tied into making America seem like the bad guy. And
Guilt,
the
guilt,
right
guilt is a
and
bad is the guilt is the most odd emotion. Is guilt an emotion that
yeah,
in the
pretty
world?
close.
It makes
Yeah.
you do crazy stuff, and that's one
So
of them. That's guilt.
so if you don't understand both aspects of those, just moments in time, then you don't understand the context that where people are trying to sway you in one direction or another today.
Right.
And that's not a matter of memorizing what date it was. That's a matter of memorizing why, the why behind history, not
Why?
the not the minutia of it, but the why, the big picture. This is what actually this meant.
Yes.
That's
And
what
what?
fascinates me.
Yeah. And so you go to the public school system. Do they teach you the why, or do they? Okay, you got a pop quiz. What date did this happen?
Yeah,
Who signed this?
yeah.
What state did that? That's all memorization to pass a test. It wasn't. I mean, I guarantee you, most people think, well, we just woke up one day and we decided to become our own country. So we told the British Empire we're going to be our own country, and we went to war.
Yeah, we threw some tea in the harbor. They didn't like that, so we started shooting each other. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it happened instantaneously. So a lot of people look at history and like, oh, that it just happened. That
oh,
everything is so prolonged.
yeah,
The American Revolution was 20, 30 years in the making
at
before
least.
the first bullets were fired. Same with the Civil War started with the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. Well,
It's
here's the thing.
years. It's
So
years.
like people think of, let's take one of the founding fathers, Ben Franklin. People think that he was, yeah, and he was one of our tremendous founding fathers. But people don't realize he was in his 80s when
Yep.
the Revolutionary War was
Oh,
occurring,
yep.
and he had been writing things about the American concept, about freedom, about how England was screwing up since he was a teenager.
Yeah. Under a surname.
Right.
Um.
So that had been going on for 50 years.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, obviously he wasn't the only one, and he wasn't even the earliest one. From the very moment that people landed on these shores, they already had that mindset.
Yeah.
But it just took 150 years for people to start throwing bullets back and forth.
Right, because think about it, the Plymouth Rock, 1620. Man,
Mhm.
what did it take to send your family across the ocean on a boat to start a world that you didn't know nothing about? It's not like you
Yeah,
can look it up on the internet to see what the colony of New Hampshire was going to be. Um, to to do that was a big risk,
hmm,
and it was all for whether it's religious freedom or economic freedom, whatever. It's all about freedom.
yeah,
To escape tyranny from something else. So yeah, you're right. That happened years and years and years ago. You could say the same thing about World War II. World War II started because of World War One.
yeah. World War
I mean,
II, literally the day World War One stopped,
yes,
the seeds for World War II were planted.
right. And you could talk to anybody about Hitler, and they know the slightest about him. It took years for him to get in position. People are like, well, Germany just hated Jews, so they killed Jews. No, no, no. It took years to 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 recreate schools and to take away guns and to have a generation believe in what you believed in because of what happened in World War One, to all of a sudden invade Poland in September of '39. That's a long period of time. It doesn't. Nothing ever happens instantaneously. So it
No,
takes a while to fester.
no.
Okay, so um, but you have to, like you said, that you have to understand that you can't just understand dates and stuff like that. You have to understand the why and the how in
Hmm.
order to see like this. This
And
is
that,
happening. What's going to happen 20 years from now because
yeah,
of what's happening right now?
yeah.
Are you thinking about that? I know you're thinking about it. Are is most people thinking about that?
I don't
No,
think that they are.
no, they're not.
I don't think they are. I think people are reactionary. I think if you and I see something happening and we light torches and we tell people this is what's happening, they'll react to it. But I don't want people to react to it. I want people to think for themselves. And when I tell somebody, hey, this is what's going on, the best thing I can ever hear from them is, yeah, I know I've seen that going on for a couple of weeks now. I'm right on board with it. That makes me so happy whenever I find a rare person that does that.
Well, I think what's better than that is somebody asking a question.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
why do you think that? in the truest sense, not like being sarcastic. Like, okay, well, what do you mean? And then you tell them. That's somebody actually like, okay, I'm open minded to hearing something else other than what's being shoved down their throat
Yeah.
by mainstream or just whatever anybody else wants to believe. Um, People asking questions is to me is okay. I kind of see that, but why do you think it? And then you tell them why, and they're like, okay, that shows you that somebody's thinking and not just reaction, like you said. Everybody's reactionary
Hmm.
to the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get people that, like, I get a lot of messages from people where they'll send me a news story or they'll send me something they've run across and they'll literally ask me, what's this all about? Do you
No,
get a lot of that?
no, no, because you're still you're more famous than I'm. You're Jack
Well,
Rizzo. You're famous. I'm just
I'm,
RJ Dufresne.
well,
Nobody asked me questions, so
well, I'm
maybe
kind of the
down the
answer guy to
road,
a lot
maybe
of
down the
folks too.
road, but
I'm kind of the answer guy to a lot of people too. So,
right.
but yeah, I mean, but I'm right there with you. I love, and I'm not one of these people. I don't like to chat back and forth. If anybody's ever tried to message back and forth with me, you got to know I'm the worst person for replying to messages. But if somebody asks me something with that, I'm right on top of it because that's somebody who is wanting to learn.
It's important. Yeah,
It's huge. It's huge,
yeah,
and it's so rare.
yeah. I mean, if you're gonna bicker back and forth and call me an ism or an ist, I'm done. Like I, I got mad at someone the other day, and they're like, well, you're being inappropriate or you're being mean. I'm like, for 10 years, anytime anybody disagrees with you, you call them a name, and all of a sudden I say something and I'm mean.
Yeah,
I'm over it already.
yeah,
Like have a conversation, ask questions, talk about it, or I'm done. So when someone asks a question, if anybody asked you a question, you'd be like, boom, okay. But if
yeah.
someone's like, well, you're just a racist, okay, I gotta go. I gotta go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and
This doesn't work anymore. It doesn't
I've
work anymore.
I've been hit with that where I've been going in because I've got friends across the entire political spectrum, and we get into, I don't want to say arguments, but we get into friendly debates because we're all still, at the end of the day, we're still buddies. And every once in a while, somebody will pop in there and and call me a racist, a misogynist, whatever. And usually it's a friend of mine that I grew up with, and I'll just have to say, look, you've known me for almost 50 years. You know that that's not me. And they'll back off and they'll say, you're right. But people, that's their initial reaction these days because they know that shuts down debate. They don't
Right.
like to hear what you're saying. So they're like, okay, I've got this magic phrase that's gonna shut this down.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. A magic phrase to because I don't know anything else. So I'm
Hmm.
going to call you this, and what are you going to prove to me that you aren't? No. So I
Right,
can call
right.
you
Because
that.
I can't go through every interaction I've ever had with every human being my entire life and say, see, here's my evidence. Because first off, that it would be impossible to categorize that. But then second, as soon as you start saying, well, I've got a lot of friends who are like this or like that, and that immediately paints you as some kind of a jackass that doesn't see how they
No.
actually are.
Right. And for 10 years on social media hearing that stuff, I'm honestly over it. Like I'm not I for 10 years I've been trying to find like somebody that can honestly debate you and ask questions and go back and forth. I maybe you found it. I haven't found it. So at this point, maybe it's sad that we have to get into this tribal, like I said at the beginning of the show, tribalism type mentality. But at some point, whether you're friend or foe, man, if you're calling me this stuff, I'm not spending time with you anymore.
No,
I'm over
no.
it. You're not gonna get it. You're not gonna understand it. If you want to have a debate, that's fine. But I'm not. If you're gonna call me a name, I'm over it. I'm over it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just enough.
You've already marked yourself as somebody who is not on a level that you and I can have an intelligent conversation
Yeah.
at this
So
point.
why waste your time? I mean, time is
Exactly.
so valuable, especially when as older you get, the more you realize how valuable time is. You don't get this back. So why do it debating someone that's just not gonna their heads somewhere else and let them be somewhere else. Just
Yeah.
fine. You want to be miserable, be miserable. I'm not. I'm over it. Like I got so many things to deal with. I'm not dealing with you.
Yeah. No, exactly. I'm right there with you, man. And
So
and
let me ask
and
you
to, and
what.
to answer your question, I found in all my time, I found one person like that. So,
Yeah,
and
I
I've
mean
won.
it's just hard, and that's the thing we were talking about earlier, like the pros and the cons of social media. I think one of the cons is like if you we have a mutual friend. Well, you did have a mutual friend. I remember back in the early '90s, a guy we both know by the name of Mr. Dallas Davis,
Yep.
and I remember him saying one time, he said, if we all knew what each other thought, we'd all hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in the '90s.
Right.
Now with social media,
That was
we
back
all
when
know
I
what
had hair.
everybody thinks. We all know what everybody thinks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like
Nobody's got filters anymore. They
nobody's
put
got
it right
filters
out there.
anymore. So then it creates this division. It's not Trump. It's not, I mean, it's not really Obama. It's it's us.
Yeah.
We created this. Now
Yeah.
the social media was the vehicle for that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's on both sides. Like
Yeah.
if I wonder if somebody's stupid, just check their social media and remove all doubt.
Yeah.
There it is. You're
Yeah.
dumb. And
When I
it's
go to
sad.
hire somebody, the first thing I do is go look at their social media because I want to see what kind of an idiot they are. You know?
Right. Right. And it's we could all be idiots about some things, but
Yeah.
there's Cleveland Brown fans all over the place, but
I
they're
mean,
still probably still good people.
I don't. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
I'm trying to figure
another
out if how
another
accurate that is.
subject for another day. Right. We'll have a Cleveland Browns episode at one point once the
Yes, we
football
will.
season starts.
Yes,
It'll
we
be
will.
it'll be epic for sure. So let me ask you about just real quick about the election coming up.
Hmm.
What do you? I mean, Bernie's gone.
Bernie's gone.
I find it
Bernie's
very
figured out the country is already destroyed and 6.5 million people are unemployed. He can't do any more damage, so he got out of
no,
the race.
yeah. Well, what else am I gonna do? I
Yeah,
can't. You
mission
win. I
mission
can't do that
accomplished.
good. So like, I mean, just in your own words, what do you see happening in November as far as presuming? I guess
We're
Biden
going to presume
is.
right. We're going to presume that Biden's the nominee, and they're not trying to do because I think there's a good chance they're going to try to do a contested nomination process for the Democrats, and they're going to try to slide Cuomo in there.
Yeah, I agree.
And I've got a lot of liberal friends that are big fans of Cuomo right now, and he's not the answer. I hate to tell that to my Democrat friends. He's not the answer. He is he's just not good. He's not a good guy. He's kind of a bumbling idiot. But whatever. He's their darling at the moment. So let's assume that Biden carries the day and he's the nominee. He doesn't stand a chance. It's going to be Reagan Mondale all over again.
Yeah.
It's going to be Mondale won. You think about it, Mondale won 3 electoral votes. That's 3 more than I got, and I didn't run.
He got everything, but he won Minnesota and Washington D.C.
Exactly, exactly. So, and I don't think it would be that epic.
No.
I think the economy is going to have a lot to do with it. If the economy gets started back up and it starts off strong, then you might as well not even have the election because it's going to be pointless. If they decide to extend out this essentially shutdown of America until June, then I mean Trump is still going to win, but it's going to be close because then you have the media machine that's just going to start kicking it into overdrive right in the middle of the summer. It's a lot, they're going to try to blame Trump for a lot of things that the governors initially tried to get Trump to do all this stuff because they didn't want the political blowback that was going to happen when they shut down their states' economies. Um, and that's what the media is going to try to do. They're going to try to make this look like this was all Trump. And the people, fortunately, with social media, enough people have been educated on it to where they're seeing this is what's happening. So it's not going to turn out the way the media wants. Plus,
No.
the pushback to the media is already happening anyway. So in either case, I see Trump being reelected. I see him being reelected very strongly. And again, it just depends on what the economy's like. I think if the economy's kicking ass, then it's going to be, close to Reagan Mondale. It'll be one of the more lopsided victories in history.
Right.
If the economy's still down in the dumps, it'll still be close. It'll be close, but it'll be more like, Bush, Kerry.
Right, Bush Kerry. not quite Bush Gore, but yeah, Bush
No,
Kerry.
not Bush Gore, but Bush Kerry. So
we don't need that again.
No, that's kind of the way I see it. I think the more interesting thing is going to be what happens in the House and the Senate, because before this happened, I would have put really good money on the Republicans retaking the House, and now I'm not sure.
Right.
Just because the House is so regional, and there's a lot of people that vote regionally instead of thinking big picture, which they should. They should. That's the purpose of the House and the Senate is regional. The Senate is supposed to be the representatives of the state, even though they're elected popularly now instead of the states nominating them, which is, in my opinion, is wrong.
So you think you should get rid of that amendment?
I'm a firm believer in that. I believe that the states need to have representation in the federal government, and I think our founders knew that, and that's why they set up the Senate the way that they did.
Yeah.
Because if you had a senator that was beholden to the state legislature, they would vote completely differently than they do now.
Right, because you're not pandering to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
How do you see it?
No, I'm actually trying to find a way to where I disagree, but obviously it's not going to be Mondale Reagan because there's still California and Illinois and New York. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, once you get into the debates and once you get into the advertisement, Joe Biden is just, if you thought Hillary was a bad candidate,
yeah.
If you think John McCain is a bad candidate or Bob Dole, I mean, I'll go both sides.
Yeah. No.
There's a lot
we've had a lot of bad candidates on the Republican side over the last 40 years.
A ton. I mean, I'm a strong believer. I'm sure most people are that they threw Mondale in just to give him a send-off party. Like
it was his turn.
Go have your turn. The same with Bob Dole.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that had to do with the economy.
That election still ticks me off because you had a draft dodger who beat a legitimate war hero.
Right.
That election still to this day ticks me off.
Well, 96, it's always about the economy. Name an incumbent that's lost with a good economy.
Exactly.
Doesn't happen.
Exactly.
That never happened. It doesn't matter. So even though Clinton had a lot of trouble or whatever, and he was down a lot, Bob Dole was a throwaway candidate. He was a moderate, just like McCain, and Romney's basically a Democrat at this point.
Yeah.
But like I said, we'll get to 84 numbers. No. But who's going to vote for this guy? Who once the debates, there's a legitimate. He has dementia. It's not even a. Yeah. It's not a question now.
I'm honestly, this is not to poke fun at the guy. I'm honestly disturbed that he hasn't pulled out of the race because it's obvious if you watch him interact with people that his mental faculties are not there, or at least are not there enough for him to be a candidate for president.
Right. So what's going to happen during debates? I mean, is they going to push this virus out so long where they can't have a debate?
I think you're going to see that.
He can't debate Trump at anything. He's going to. The candidate's bad. I think they know they're going to lose. So they're trying everything they can to get rid of the guy, get rid of Trump, knowing that nobody's going to beat him. especially
Yeah.
Biden. I mean, Obama hasn't even endorsed him yet, and he's the only guy standing, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Um, but I think you're right. There's probably maybe a 5% chance where Cuomo comes in, but I don't even think Cuomo wants to get his hat in the ring. To be honest with you, maybe he does.
You think
I
there's
don't
any
know.
chance of? I've heard this name bandied about. You think there's any chance of Michelle Obama?
No, I don't think. No, I don't think so because just like the Clintons, Obama's, we might not agree with them, but they know politics.
Yes.
They know their timing. Trump was gonna run for president in 2012, but he knew his timing.
Hmm.
He knew Obama was going to win most likely, so he waited. If anything's going to happen like that, they're saving somebody for 2024, which is what they should do.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
like, I mean,
From
okay,
from a purely political animal
19,
standpoint, that would be the smart thing for them to do.
it should do. So Biden, throw Biden to the wolves. You know they don't want Bernie. Bernie's not a fighter. Bernie's never not even a Democrat. He's been an
No,
independent his whole
I
life.
don't know how he's I don't know how he's running on the Democrat side. He's not a registered Democrat. He's a
No,
registered
he's
socialist
never
who's
has been.
independent. I'm not sure how that equates to I'm going to be on the Democrat. I mean, I don't know the Democrats' rules of nomination probably as well as I should, but I can't imagine that they would let a Democrat, a non-Democrat, be the Democrat nominee.
Right. And I think that's an issue. I think that's an issue on the Democrat side, the DNC side. I mean, you were there in 2016. There's, Bernie won that DNC. He won the
Yeah,
nomination. They
yeah,
gave it to Hillary. They handed it to him. Um,
yeah.
and it's
Which
almost the same
was
way this way.
probably
I mean,
it was
Biden
probably
was
their worst mistake ever because I think that Bernie, with the momentum he had a stronger possibility of beating Trump than Hillary did.
a better possibility because most people got to look at the climate of the political season. And in 2016, it was the non-establishment.
Yes.
Trump was non-establishment. We've had enough Bushes and Clintons to choke a camel.
Yeah.
So to so Trump won because it was the era of either populism or just non-establishmentarianism. Like
Yeah.
so, they put Clinton in there, who is an establishment, to beat somebody in the political spectrum or the political climate of populism, of somebody different. Okay.
Yeah.
If you put Bernie in there, would Bernie have won? I don't think so because I
Oh,
don't think America's ready to be a socialist yet.
right.
Trump would have still won, but Hillary is just a bad candidate, and even though I say that, I think Biden's even worse.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
worse. He has to be worse.
He might be the worst candidate in my lifetime. I'm trying to think if there's anybody worse than him. And,
That you voted for your lifetime.
no, in my lifetime. Because
You got to look at Mondale.
I was looking at Mondale, I was looking at Dukakis. Dukakis was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Um, but Mondale at least had his wits about him. And
Oh,
Mondale, for as much as Mondale was a big government liberal, he was a fairly likable guy.
yes,
I
he
mean,
was.
you watch the debates if you could find old videos of the debates with him and Reagan. Mondale was very likable on the stage. He was laughing right along with Reagan because he understood Reagan. He understood what he was up against, and he knew he didn't have a chance.
Right.
Um,
And basically, he won the first debate, and Reagan had to come back and fight for the
right.
second debate. That's where that whole the age quote came out.
Yeah,
Was the
that's
second debate,
the
and
famous
that's when you
quote.
know he lost because
Yeah,
Mondo's like, okay, you got me.
yeah, he got me, and that was the end of it.
Right. That was
Um,
the end of it, right.
but the vision of Dukakis in a tank that was pretty bad.
That was
Um,
that was pretty
but
bad.
those are the only Dukakis is really the only one I think comes close to Biden as far as incompetence. And again, this isn't a dig against Biden. He's literally, I think you're right. I think he's got early onset dementia or something. And he's what, 78 years old. I
He's
mean,
older. He's older than Trump.
yeah. And Trump's not young, although Trump he 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 has an aura of youth around him because he's a vibrant, full of energy guy. Biden is an old geezer, and
Right.
I don't and my father-in-law is 87, and I love my father-in-law, and my father-in-law has more energy and more wits about him than Biden does.
Right.
Um, so I kind of feel bad for Biden because this is his big shot, but he's he's just a bad candidate. He's just bad all around.
Well, let me
He has
ask you
no shot.
this. I I thought about this before. It's like, what if Biden accepts the nomination, and then with the last ditch effort by the DNC, they somehow convince Biden that he's not fit to win. He's not fit to run.
Hmm.
And so between whenever the DNC convention is, July to November, sometime in October, he comes out and says, I can't run. What happens then?
Well, the Democrats have a really weird nominating process because you have these things called super delegates that each super delegate, it's like 100 people that are super delegates, and they can actually outnumber the thousands and thousands of
Right.
other regular delegates.
Which is why Hillary won in the first place.
Right, exactly, exactly. And these are all people that are huge donors to the DNC. These are all liberal movers and shakers. They're not they're not regular delegates. Normal delegates are just people who are local big wigs in politics that just happen to be along for the ride. These are people that are actually essentially in control of the party.
Right.
Um, so I think it would be a matter of who the super delegates would determine would be the best fit, and that's when I would say you would be looking at an Andrew Cuomo uh, or God forbid, a Michelle Obama or even Hillary Clinton for a second
Well,
time, something
yeah,
like that.
and it's kind of odd because even more and more recently, like very recently, I'm thinking Hillary's still out there.
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, I guess you're still looking at the 5% chance. Okay, most likely Biden's going to run and get embarrassed. But it just feels like, are they really going to run with him for the long haul? Are they going to try something? Like, is this planned? We're going to put this guy in, and at the last second, we're going to throw this guy in, or woman, who doesn't have time to get vetted, who doesn't have time to get run through the ringers, to go through all the speeches, and they're just going to, there's something to be said about someone entering a race late.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Reagan ran in 80, he came in late.
Yes, he did.
And it's not as much as like, okay, we don't have enough time to vet him or whatever,
No, no,
but
because
he's
Reagan
more
was
of the, this is exciting candidate all of a sudden, so the momentum goes to the person who just came in.
right
can
because
can the
Reagan.
Democrats be that smart to do that?
Yes, Reagan ran in '76 for the
Yes.
nomination
Yep.
and actually backed off because he didn't want to disrupt Ford.
Right.
Um, so he wasn't an unknown quantity, but you're right, he came in late and basically, had a lot of heavy momentum when he first came in and just used that momentum to just power his way into the nomination.
Right. But do you think that the Democrats are that smart that this is their plan?
I
To
think the Democrats are much smarter than the Republicans, politically speaking.
politically, right? Right.
Um, and I think that if that is their plan, that they already have their nominee selected, they already have everything in the works. They're just waiting for their moment.
I could see it happening.
Yeah.
I could see it happen, and I also, we all know Joe's going to pick either someone of color or a
Hmm.
woman to run with him, like a
I
Stacey Abrams. Oh my God, Stacey Abrams.
yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
I mean
I,
that.
I think he will pick. Personally, I think he'll pick Elizabeth Warren.
Do you really?
I really do. I really do. She was fairly successful in uh, carrying some of Bernie's people for a
Right.
little while, and I think they're looking at that. And she's somebody that she's proven herself to be loyal to the DNC, which is what the DNC is looking for.
Of
They're
course.
not. They would never nominate somebody like Trump, who is going to be a rogue agent within their party.
If the
Yeah.
RNC had the same rules as the DNC, Trump would have never been
Oh no,
nominated.
no,
And if
no.
the RNC had this, if the DNC had the same rules as the RNC, Bernie would have been nominated. It
Yeah,
would have been Bernie versus
Bush,
Jeb Bush or something
Jeb
like
Bush.
that. If it
That's
was
exact.
reversed,
Or Rubio. It would have
freaking
been either Bush or Rubio. One of those two.
yeah. Well, I mean, if you're gun to the head, I guess I'd pick Rubio. But God,
I mean,
Jeb Bush.
Jeb
Ooh.
Bush. Uh, that's a doorstop waiting to be tripped over right there, man.
Wow.
God bless it. I think he did an all right job as the governor of Florida, but yeah,
Well, yeah, it's the same thing. Like I said, the 2016, you can't. The establishment era was kind of stale right then.
yeah,
People wanted something new. If it was Jeb Bush and Bernie, holy smokes, we would have been done.
yeah.
Bernie would have been. I really do. I really think Bernie could have won that election if it was something like a scenario like that. But
If it was anybody establishing, and when I say establishing, I'm not. I don't consider Cruz establishment. I don't
no,
consider Rand Paul establishment.
nope.
Um, but somebody like a Jeb Bush or somebody like
John Kasich, your
yeah,
boy up
Casey,
in Ohio.
yeah, my boy here in
A
Ohio. Yeah.
Democrat. I mean, whatever he is.
Well, and that's the thing is that's why I'm leaning more away from republicanism and more towards libertarianism, uh, myself personally. And it's not a party thing, and it's not that I agree with libertarians on more things than the Republicans, but that the Republicans have gone so far establishment wise to the left that I no longer see the majority of them aligned with me. And when that
Right.
happens, you have to kind of look around.
Right. Look who they nominate over and over and over again. I mean, the Romneys and McCain's and even the Bushes. I mean, I look. I like W, but
Mm-hmm.
man, I didn't like his bailouts at the end of his.
No, I liked him 6 out of 8 years. Yeah,
Right. Oh, the first 4 years, All
yeah.
American. Let's
Oh
go.
yeah.
At the end, but so let me. All right, let me wrap this up. But if Trump gets reelected, what kind of Trump do you think? Knowing that he can't be reelected again.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this depends on whether he wins the House or not.
That's a lot of it's going to depend on
Yeah,
that.
so that's kind of a double-edged, a double question there. But um,
I think you could
if the
go either way, right?
economy booms, they win the House. The Senate's, I think, safe anyways. You
Yeah,
might
I
disagree
think
with that, but
I
I
think
think,
so.
yeah, I think it's got to be a miracle for them to get the Senate.
Yeah,
But if he wins that, they win the House and the Senate. What kind of Trump do you see? You'll see in 2 years?
I think that you will see almost a mixed bag there because the thing with Trump is there are some things big government wise that he likes. Not a lot, but there's some things, and I think he'll push for those things. But for the most part, I think an unfettered Trump will will absolutely turn the economy on like double turbo speed. I think we will have never seen anything like it, or not hadn't seen anything like it since the 20s. Um,
So, regardless of the debt, regardless of the trillions we printed this year.
I think so. I think that would be his mindset. I think that he's a free market capitalist person, and I think that he is actually upset at the amount of regulation in the country. You've seen that in some of his actions, except for whenever it comes to tariffs. And I think that's more of a protectionist
Right.
mindset that he has. Um, I think it would be huge. I don't know that it would last. I don't know that it wouldn't absolutely create massive inflation. But I think that what you'd see is you'd see a boom that, like we haven't seen in 80 years. I think it would dwarf what we saw in the 80s. And you know me, I'm a huge fan of Reagan. I love what Reagan did in the 80s, but I think it would dwarf what Reagan had happened in the 80s.
Because you know for a fact if they win the House again, they're going to go for impeachment. I mean,
Oh,
there's no doubt
of
about it.
course,
So,
yeah. But
um,
if the Republicans win the House, one thing that you are going to see that is going to be an outcome from this, specifically what we're going through right now, is a lot because 95+% of our pharmaceuticals are manufactured in China right now, and you're going to see a push for that to be
yes,
brought back into the fold in America and have that be handled domestically because we don't need to whether you think China released this intentionally or whether you think it was an accident or whether you believe their response or don't believe their response. The fact of the matter is they're aligning themselves as our mortal enemies, and I mean to the point where this is almost it borders on an act of war.
no, I
uh,
agree.
and you don't want to have your mortal enemy control the means for you to take care of your sick.
Right.
So I think that in pharmaceuticals is a huge part of the economy. It's probably an eighth of the economy. So if we just brought that back into the United States, that by itself would be a huge boom. And that's because that's what happened in the 80s was you had the technology boom. And then, of course, in the 90s, you had another technology boom. Well, it would be similar to that, except for it would be a pharmaceuticals boom.
Right. I mean, there's no reason it should be in China anyways. To be
No,
honest with you. I
no,
mean, if every American just bought American and not China, China would be done.
yeah,
It's as
yeah,
simple as that. I mean,
yeah. And I mean, and of course, we're realists. We understand that if you have a choice between buying a $300 TV made in China or a $900 TV that's the exact same TV made in America, most people are going to choose the $300 TV.
right. But then that comes back to the regulations and the red tape and the taxes that the American companies have been forced to deal with over the last how many years. If you reduce all that and make things a little bit cheaper, it could happen.
Right. And a lot of times, what you're seeing now in America is you're seeing companies that are foreign owned, like, for example, Kia, which is a Korean company. They've established themselves as an automaker in the South. Well, the reason they did that was because they don't have to deal with the unions down there, which has allowed them to keep their price of their cars very low.
Yeah.
So I think if people follow that model where they get away from union control in a lot of these industries, that you won't even have the price difference that we're talking about. You're
Right.
going to have the difference between a $300 TV and a $350 TV.
Correct.
Well, with that, that's nothing. I'm going to choose the $300, $350 American TV every single time if it's all
Right.
the same.
Yeah, and I mean they got BMW plants now in South Carolina, so I
Hmm.
mean it's
Yeah,
just smart business. But
yeah.
uh,
I mean, that's what. Unfortunately, Trump is. He's not a union guy, but he tends to side with them. So unfortunately, that's one thing that I don't think would be affected by it.
he's a New
But
Yorker at heart.
yeah, I mean,
That's Union Central. I
yeah,
mean,
unfortunately,
he's worked with them. I mean, he knows them. So
yeah, yeah.
um,
And that's the other reason I think this election is going to be so lopsided is there's a lot of elements that the Democrats have classically uh, been able to count on, like the unions, like the minority vote, things like that. That with Trump in office, they're no longer able to really count on that.
right.
So it would suck to be a Democrat right now. I just
Well,
gotta say that.
I mean it would. I mean I remember back in '09 seeing a Time magazine where it says the death of the Republican Party.
Yeah,
And ever since then, the amount of seats taken from the Democrats has been in the thousands.
yeah.
Um, and
At one point, the Republicans held the House, the Senate, the White House, and all but I think two legislatures in the states.
right,
It was ridiculous. And that was after the death of the Republican Party.
right. And I think we're still overall a country that's center right.
Yeah,
Um, there are political whims and situations. Obama was one of them. Regardless of what he was, he was charismatic. He was going to be the first black president. I think that was just a perfect opportunity for him. He got elected. I think
yeah,
Bill Clinton got elected because Ross Perot stuck his nose in there and took away votes from Bush.
yeah,
It takes a lot in my mind for a Democrat to win the presidency.
yeah. And that's
It does.
that's not even looking at the voter fraud that is rampant and things like that. That's
Right. I mean, look at even Jimmy Carter. It had to take Watergate and the Vietnam War and everything that happened with Ford, just pardoning Nixon and all that stuff for him to get let's just get a Southern guy and he's like he's all nice and Americanized. It it just it takes a lot. So to think Biden is going to win.
yeah. I don't see any mechanism where he can win. I see unless Trump literally live on camera shoots his press secretary in the face in the middle of a press conference. I don't see any way that Biden wins.
No,
Just
I don't either.
you know.
So what? Just real quick, a quick prediction of 2024. Who
Whew.
runs?
Um,
Trump's over. Trump
Trump's
presidency's
gone.
over.
I
All
think
the
I
Bidens are done.
yeah. I think obviously Pence will run. I'd like to see Cruz run again because I'm a big Cruz fan. I think Rand Paul will run again, and I think that'll be your three front runners for the Republican nomination. And I think it would go to either Cruz or Pence, depending on how the second term of Trump goes. If it goes well, it'll be Pence in a shoe in. If it doesn't go really well, then I think you're looking at a battle. In the Democrats, you're going to have Elizabeth Warren run again. You're going to have Cory Booker run again. Kamala Harris run again. I think there's going to be a real big push on the Democrat side to nominate a woman or a minority or both. So Kamala Harris probably has the edge there. Or you'll see, like you did in '92, where you have a Democrat governor that uh, that all of a sudden pops up out of nowhere. They
Right.
they tend to nominate from governors more than anybody else, um, and with that, it's hard to say because there's a couple of good. When I say good, there's a couple of decent Democrat governors out there. Regionally speaking, they're decent. I don't think they're decent politically, but they have the will of the people behind them in their state. Gavin Newsom's one that comes to
Yes.
mind. That I'm actually he has impressed me with not his response so much, but how much he's been able to set politics aside and actually praise Trump when Trump's been doing good things, which has got to probably infuriate some Democrats. But I think that's somebody that could be a dark horse for sure. I mean, Governor of California is a powerful place to run from. You
Right.
know, you already have a leg up because you know you're going to carry California.
Right.
So, but that's the way I see it. So I would say if I had to put money on it, I would say it would be Pence versus, gosh, it'd be a coin flip between Newsom and Harris in 2024.
Right. No, I actually kind of agree with you on the Democrat side. I think Newsom is an up and coming person. I think they're hell bent into getting a woman in the office. They're
Yes.
hell bent, and I think it would be funny if the Republicans were the first one to get a woman into office.
Oh, I
Uh,
mean, I'd vote for Nikki Haley tomorrow. You know.
yeah, Nikki Haley kind of worries me a little bit. I mean, I like her too, but uh, like I would like to see a Candace Owens run. Like, what
Oh
would
no, Candace Owens would be
it would
awesome.
be great to see the first black woman be a Republican.
I'm in full out sexual love with Candace Owens. I mean, she is just
No, she said, if I run, like, I'm gonna make Trump look like a wimp.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. Like,
No,
it's
she pulls zero punches.
right.
I mean, that you've
Um,
got to. She's brilliant. I absolutely love her. I feel about her the same way I felt about Condoleezza Rice when she was Secretary of State.
right.
You know, and then Condoleezza Rice kind of she made some decisions that I didn't really agree with. I still like her, but I'd like her for her to be the commissioner of the NFL instead of Goodell. I don't
Right.
want her to
Oh
be
yeah.
the
Well,
top.
some people get into Washington and they start becoming Washington. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think that was
Exactly.
maybe one of them. But I think Newsom is going to be the nominee. I like, but like I said, they're hell bent to getting someone like Kamala Harris. I don't know if Elizabeth has worn out her welcome. That's a lot to say right there.
That's a lot of
Warren
W's.
has worn out her welcome. There you go. On the Republican side, though, are they going to go back to establishmentarianism and stuff? Like, are, will they be tired of Pence? I don't know. Like, I think these days it's very hard for a vice president to win.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
I like Ron DeSantis in Florida. He's
yeah,
very popular in Florida,
yeah.
and he's very very strong. But as far as the Democrats go, I think they're tired of the old person. They're going to go back to something like Obama that worked. Um, so
Yeah,
getting these old,
I think this political season has backfired on them, and
oh
because they
God,
had a lot of young populist candidates when they first started. The problem was they had so many of them, they drowned each other out,
right,
and
right,
I think they're seeing that as a big mistake.
yeah. The Cory Bookers of the world, I don't think they have a chance. I think
Oh
he's
no, no,
just
he's an idiot. He's
yeah
an absolute idiot.
he's done.
Yeah.
Um, would it surprise me if Bernie ran again? No,
No,
but
Bernie will run again. If
yeah,
Bernie is in the Senate, he will run again. I mean,
but
but he won't get anywhere.
right.
But
Uh,
he will run again. And
Yeah, so I think someone like DeSantis or Crenshaw, someone like that, um, might run, but I think 2024 is going to be kind of hard especially if they run someone like Michelle Obama.
yeah,
I could see that. I'm
yeah,
not
I didn't
sure
even think about
why she would want to run. Like, I don't understand why Hillary wants to run. You go, like, you scammed a bunch of people. Go buy an island and live the rest of your life like sipping margaritas. What do you want?
I mean, they talk about how the Obamas just floated. I can't remember who. They floated somebody $400 million for some project, and uh, I'm thinking, where do you come up with $400 million? But then, if you have that kind of money, why would you want to put yourself out there politically and go through all the stress of running for president unless you're just obsessed with power?
Right. Well, that's what they are. You have to be a certain breed.
Hmm.
We're both passionate about politics and stuff, but neither one of us would want that job. I don't. I
No,
wouldn't want it.
no,
Screw that, man. I want
no.
to go. I want to go hiking and fishing. I don't want that. I
Yeah,
mean, you know, it's fun to talk about. It's passionate, but there's some people that just have that deeper desire to be this power hungry individual, and whew, it's the worst
yeah.
job in the world. I mean, it's the best job in the world, but it's the worst job in the world.
If I ever ran for office, and I tell people all the time, if once I'm president, I'm going to do this and this and this, and it's a running joke with my buddies. But um, if I ever ran for office, if I ran for president, my whole intention would be to serve one term and one term only, and make as much change back to originalism as I possibly could within that 4 years.
Right.
And
That's like a James K. Polk type style.
yeah,
He,
and then
he
go
ran on
away.
4 years. He said, I'm going to go 4 years and that's it. I'm done.
Yeah, and then just go find a golf course to hide on for the rest of my life.
Right. He
You
said,
know?
I'm going to do this, and this, and then I'm out of here. And then he died like 6 months after he left office, but whatever.
Well,
So,
life
so
expectancy was about 46 back then anyway. So
yeah, yeah. And I don't think golf was very popular in the States anyway. So,
no, no, not yet.
No, not yet. So we're gonna start this project,
Yep.
talking about the presidents,
hmm
and
I think that's a great place to start.
yeah, I think it's a great place to start to learn about the history of them, and my whole thing is there's certain presidents that are automatically high, and there's certain presidents that are automatically low, and I would like to not artificially do it, but I would like to find out, like, okay, everybody puts FDR and Lincoln and Washington high. That's great, but what? But
I
there
don't,
has
but
there has to be other things in there. They can't be automatic all the time. I
right.
would like to do both sides. Like, there's good and there's bad. There's no perfect president. There never will be a
No,
perfect president.
no. The closest thing we ever had to a perfect president was
It was
Washington.
Washington, right? Right.
Yeah, and even he had flaws.
He had very good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, he invaded his own people for the Whiskey Rebellion. That's wrong. I mean, it's wrong. But but in the grand scheme of things, his biggest contribution. I mean, I know we're jumping into it. Is he served two terms and left.
yep. And he basically set the bar where it should have stayed. Unfortunately, he set the bar at a point where every president that came behind him lowered it just a little bit.
Right.
Some tried to raise it back, and we both got our mindset on presidents that bumped it back up a little bit, but it never got to that bar again, and it should have been a consistent. This is where this person needs to be.
Right. Right. I agree. So yeah. Um. So like, I don't know if we ever talked about the details, doing like one a week or whatever, but I like to just not do it in order.
Right.
Kind of just do it randomly and just throw it out there, and picking something out of a hat. And something that's not obvious. Like our first one shouldn't be like Abraham Lincoln, or and I don't, and to do Trump is not fair. I'm not a big fan of doing, you know,
It's
you
really
remember we
difficult
were in golf.
to do the president that's
People
in
were
office.
comparing. Right. In 2001, we were comparing Jack Nicklaus to Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods have been golf is pro for 5 years.
Right.
No, you're not
Exactly.
doing that. I'm not
Exactly.
falling for that.
No. 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 No.
It's even hard to. I mean, we can talk about the Obama presidency all day long, but it's still pretty new.
Yeah. And
Um,
I mean, we can look at from a perspective of this is where we felt like he did good things. This is where we felt like he did bad things. But it honestly, it takes probably two presidents removed before you can actually look at somebody's presidency and analyze where their missteps were and what they did great.
right, because some of the things they did still affect things, years down the road.
Right. Now,
Um,
Obama specifically, because a lot of his stuff that he did was executive orders, it had more of an immediate impact. But it's still, yeah, it's still a delayed effect.
right, because we don't know the full effect of Obamacare, and
Yeah.
we might not know that for a long time.
Right.
I mean, we probably have an idea
I mean, I know
where it
how I
is,
feel about it, but
right? But if it goes down or it stays or whatever, we don't know that. So it's hard to, like you said, to evaluate something that there's still things out there affected by that president.
yep.
So how do we go about picking our first president?
Well,
I was thinking about like doing a 1 through 44 or something like that, and just picking out of a hat, but
yeah,
I didn't
no.
really get to that point because I was eating my bat meat. I
Now,
still got
did you braise the bat meat or did you just stew it? Because if you stew it, it can be kind of rubbery. But if you braise it, all those little tendons and stuff just melt away.
no, I put it in brine for like a day.
Oh,
Yeah.
you gave me this out of it and everything. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
You
Yep.
you sir know your bat meat.
I do. I'm gonna go to the wet market this weekend and pick up some more.
Very nice, very nice. Um, yeah, I think it should just be a random thing. With one exception, I think if we pull up a clunker as the first one. So let's say, oh, I don't know, Andrew Johnson is the first one. Well, let's not do him. Maybe choose another one. But I think the randomness of it would be better, just because if you're, it's very easy if you do them in chronological order to kind of lose track of how far you've gone. Whereas if we do Polk and then we do Coolidge and then the next show we do Jefferson,
Right.
Well, then it's really easy for you to see. Okay, this is the huge gulf that was created in that time.
Yes.
So, plus we like random stuff.
No, I like random. I like. So I think what we should do is like pick somebody. Like right at the end of every show,
Mm-hmm.
we pick somebody, and then off the top of our head we think of something without studying from next week of what you think of them immediately.
Just shoot
Just
from
randomly, like on top of your head. Like we pick out John Quincy Adams. Boom. What do you think of?
I think that he was a stud. I think the fact that his grandsons are still living today is scary. I mean, the man knew Washington personally,
Yes.
and his grandsons are still alive today.
Yes.
Not great grandsons, not great great grand. His grandsons, the sons of his son, are still alive. That's
I actually didn't know that. I thought
that's freakish, man.
Yeah, it is free. I sometimes think about that. Like your gap is like, okay, who's the oldest person you remember talking to? So I remember talking to my great grandfather who was born in 1894. Okay,
Yeah, I remember my great grandmother. She was 1890, 1889, something like that. She was born. So yeah, I'm right there in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, so you think about that, and when he was born, there were people in the country that were alive when George Washington was president.
Yeah.
Or alive. So I know this is stupid to think because I talk to people about this all the time and they look at me weird. So I'm like, I talked to somebody who was alive, who was alive during someone else was alive during Washington. Like, that blows me away.
I mean, I look at that. You know how if you watch like old black and white movies, I love going on like IMDb and looking up the actors, and you find somebody who played an old person in a movie in the 1930s, and they were born in 1852, which
Right.
means they vividly remember the Civil War.
Right. Yeah, and you're watching them on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
it's like, whoa.
they did. I watched one of the earliest biofilms on Lincoln, and they had somebody in there that was born in the 1850s, which means he could have been the actor could have been a reference point for the people in the movie. They'd be like, "Is that really what Lincoln sounded like?" Because maybe
Yeah.
saw
He probably sounded like this. You have no idea.
I mean, exactly. Or he was a pro wrestler at one point. Maybe he sounded like Macho Man.
All right. Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing let's see what we can do here. I'm doing a number generator.
Okay.
Let's see if this works. Okay, so I want to do. Okay.
Watch it come up with 16.
Yeah, I know. So, how does this work? Unique. Download 50. This is kind of confusing. One. Okay. I just did a random number between 1 and 2, and it came up as 1. So I know you were wondering about it. It says 1 in 100. All right, pick from a list. Let's see if this works. No, I don't want to do this either. Let's go back. Never did a number generator. Okay, here we go. Generate one number between 1 and 44. Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
You sure?
Let's do this thing.
Let's see. I hope it's not 44.
That would suck.
And I'm going to hit go. 23.
23.
Yeah, I
I
think that's Coolidge or oh God, top of my head.
I thought that was
That
wasn't that
Benjamin
Roosevelt?
Harrison, Benjamin Harrison or something like that.
No, I thought that was Roosevelt.
It could be Roosevelt because it wasn't Coolidge 20.
Um,
Let's say 23rd president of the United States is. I picked it. Boom. We're doing Benjamin Harrison.
Benjamin Harrison. Wow.
You excited? All right. First
Ah,
thing that comes to mind,
God, Benjamin Harrison.
other than he had a beard, because they all had beards
I
back
mean,
then.
wow. Benjamin Harrison was. I honestly don't know very much about Benjamin Harrison.
Well, I know that he was between the Clevelands. Cleveland, Benjamin Harrison, Cleveland, and he was also the grandfather of William Henry Harrison, the shortest lived president of the United
Yeah,
States.
and that's what I wanted to say was I thought he was the one that was that he died of the flu like 30 days in, but it wasn't that wasn't the right Harrison.
Yeah, that was William Henry Harrison, but we
Right.
would that podcast would last 3 seconds.
We're gonna save that one for a commercial heavy podcast.
Yeah. This presidential history lesson is brought to you by William Henry Harrison.
Exactly.
He was
Oh,
awesome. He
Harrison. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I
okay,
don't know anything about Harrison off
okay.
the top of my head. So
Well, good
I'm
time.
gonna I'm gonna
Good time to
educate
study
myself
and
on
break it
Harrison.
down.
Yeah, I guarantee you by this time next week I will know a lot about Harrison.
Yes, I will too. I could think of a few things off the top of my mind. Actually, what I do think of right now, just to think, was when I read the Coolidge book by Amity Shales.
Hmm.
Uh, is he Coolidge first? One of the earliest recollections of his era was Benjamin Harrison Cleveland election. And I have to go back and look at the book, and there's a lot of gold standards, still silver standard, a lot of
Hmm.
money, monetary type stuff. So, um, and plus he was the middleman between the Clevelands. I mean, that's got to be something, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And he's one of those presidents in the middle. I think he's on the list. He's sort of like the down below, but not really that
yeah,
below, kind of
he's at
middle.
like the beginning of the bottom third.
Yeah, he's like the Martin Van Burens of the world or something like that. Yeah.
So when we do the episodes on the presidents, I think we ought to talk about where they stand historically speaking and where we would place them.
Right. I think so. Well, wow. Um, like I said, I got the book that lists that's the list of presidents from the last 3 or 4 times that the polls have been done
Hmm.
over the last 40, 50 years or whatever. Um, it might be. I mean, we can give like a general idea of where we would put them, but until we like go deeper down into all the presidents, and then maybe at the end we do like this big countdown or something like that show, or a top
Oh yeah.
10 or something like that, and
Oh yes.
we would more understand of, especially when we dive down into them, of where we should put them in the history
Yeah.
of um of
And
presidents.
and our justification for it because I'll be honest with you, the historians don't know shit.
No, no, no. And I think when we maybe we should do like a special, like a 5 minute little episode before any of this starts, and go over this book I have. And this is like this is like the end all be all of presidential rankings.
Hmm.
Who these people are and why they rank them, and all this stuff, and all these people are academics. They're academia. Okay, they know nothing.
Right. Right.
um, all they know is what's been taught to them.
Yeah. They're just
So,
regurgitating. None of them actually do any kind of scholarship on stuff. They just
right,
regurgitate what was fed to them.
right. So that's why I think if it would be, I don't know. I mean, maybe people get something out of this where people get a little deeper down into every president and to understand their flaws, understand their strengths, know them as a person, um, uh, just stuff like that. And all presidents have one thing in common, other than so far they've all been male. They all put their hand on the Bible. Some, not all of them put their hand on the Bible. Some of them put their hand on a law book
Yeah.
to swear an oath to office, to defend the Constitution at all cost. Now, that's how every president, in my mind, should be judged. Did they defend the Constitution, yes or no?
That's
To the best of their
absolutely my
ability.
criteria.
Right.
That's
So,
absolutely my criteria.
yeah, because that's what they're swearing to do. They all did it. Now, not all of them are perfect. They've
No,
probably all broken that oath at some point,
no. I
but
don't
a
care
lot
how
of
well
them
they
took.
worked with Congress. I don't care
Right.
how well they were at speechifying.
Nope.
Constitution. That's it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't care what their stances were on. I mean, I'll read the part of the book. I don't have it with me, but they gave this criteria. There's like 6 or 7 bullet points of presidential criteria, and I think all but one of them are bullshit.
Yeah,
you know, um, either you're defended the Constitution or you didn't.
exactly.
So
Exactly. That's the essence of your oath as president.
yeah,
Is to defend to your full faith and ability the Constitution of the United States of America. End all be all. Period.
right,
They they don't say work with Congress. They don't say lead whatever. Constitution. Period.
right, yeah.
Sorry if I have to be black and white with that, but that's the way I see
No,
it. So,
but you got a higher IQ. So from what I understand, higher IQ people see things in more black and white.
I
There's
do.
less gray.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I
like,
don't.
yeah,
I don't see a whole lot of gray with it.
no, I don't see a lot of gray with a lot of things.
No.
I mean,
No.
I'm sure there's some out there, but yeah, a lot of times it is that easy.
Yeah. And I mean, and you have to put it in perspective. Lincoln, in that regard, he violated a lot of constitutional things, but
Mm,
you have to look at the environment he was in
right,
too. And when we get to Lincoln, I'm sure we'll have some back and forth on that because a lot of people think what he did was good, and a lot of people think what he did was terrible.
right.
It depends on how you look at it. So
No, Lincoln might be one of our longer episodes because, yeah. So you have to also put yourself in the time. Okay,
hmm
yeah, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, but are you going to hold that against him because he lived in that time, or
right,
are you just going to see what he did as president? And that's
exactly.
what I'm trying to do is like, how, and obviously Jefferson didn't even like to be president, so
No, no.
um,
Jefferson gave like 3 public speeches his entire time in office. He didn't even give a public State of the Union. He wrote them a letter.
yeah,
He
yeah.
hated public speaking so much. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
yeah. He was not an orator at all. He was a writer.
yes,
He was a writer.
yeah,
Um,
but a great
so
man. So
yeah. So what do you think about that? How did this go? Good.
I think it went great. It was